Hello friends, Jennifer Pearson here, Thistle Gypsy, doing my deck interview with the Hobbit Tarot. And it's making sense. It's making sense. It's pretty cool. So I'm liking it so far. So I'll go through it. I'm going to refer to this, but I may not read everything. This is just to kind of show people how it works in a spread. Okay, so the first question in the deck interview is, what are you here to teach people? What are you here to teach people? And the card that came up was Strength. And that's supposed to be Thorin there, Thorin Oakenshield. And that makes perfect sense for this deck because, you know, what is the Hobbit? But it's a group of people who persist over many obstacles. They persist over many obstacles. They don't let themselves be put off. They persist over many obstacles. So I was even thinking that previously, that this would be a great deck for, like, though it may seem, career readings, anytime when you're having some difficulty and you need to think in terms of problem solving. Okay, so the next. How would you describe yourself? So how would the deck describe itself? And this was kind of a funny one to get. The Ten of Coins. The Ten of Coins. So it sees itself as a vast treasure. it has a bit of an ego. It sees itself as a vast treasure. So that was kind of fun. And what is your opinion of me? And this is also quite funny. Because how I mentioned, I think there's maybe 3 women. Yeah, 3 cards that are focused on women, and then there's one card, the Lovers, that has a woman in it. I got one of the women cards. Queen of Wands. Queen of Wands. So that was interesting. And this is also, which makes sense because here I am showing off the deck, is that, you know, this woman is showing off her apples. And we can take that any kind of way you want to take that, but showing off her apples there to people who are potential buyers. So it's kind of amusing. Alright, so the next one is a little deeper. How can I best work? Actually, I use the word collaborate. How can I best collaborate with you? And here we have Ten of Swords. So we have the death of Thorin. And you have Bjorn there, and Bjorn avenged Thorin. So I see that as, you know, if you look at Thorin and you think of Thorin or the dwarves as kind of being the maker of legends. And so, you know, in some ways I'm kind of avenging the deck by doing these, you know, by giving it more credit that it has thus far been given. So in that sense I am doing that. But I see this as referring actually back to the story, back to the Hobbit, back even maybe to Tolkien in terms of keeping that legacy alive by doing readings with this deck. So it's kind of interesting. And again, well, let me look. I'll use this. The other ones were kind of, I can do the Queen of Wands too, so that you get a better feel for that, what a court card sounds like. Do I have any other? I have one other court card, which again refers back to me. No, I have another one. That's my advice. What am I looking for? Queen of Wands first. I think the wands are up front, yes. Alright, a woman of Laketown displays her wares to a passing customer, a fine selection of red apples. An analogy for temptation is a question, or a source of possible divine inspiration. We cannot know for sure, but the fruits of this lady's labors are about to be realized. We consider all the labor and hard work of the people of Laketown. Also, we are led to think about the ability of humans to continually recreate, establish huge cities, railways, harbors, to mention but a few, in just the space of a few years. And it says, divinatory meaning, fiery, charismatic woman, independent, I'll own that one, rarely phased, for the most part, enthusiastic, in my moments, and adventurous I have been. A woman who knows what she wants and where her true loyalties lie, for the most part. A phase ahead of upbeat, exciting activity. Someone who gives off sex appeal and brings it out in others. Well, I don't think of myself that way, but reversed, it could show being overly self-obsessed. Anyway, to me, the story of the Queen makes a lot more sense. The story of the woman of Lake Town makes a lot more sense. Because I do have to rebuild. I do rebuild my life on occasion, especially after illness, things like that. So the Ten of Swords. Oh, here we're hitting one of those places in the text where it does a herky-jerky thing. So, okay. The elves were the first to charge, sending a shower of arrows against the goblins. As the goblins were recovering from their onslaught, there came a cry, Moria and Dane, and the dwarves plunged forward with the men of the lake alongside them with their swords. Despite this action, all they could do was stem the flow of the advancing goblins as the day drew on. As the host of goblins gathered in the valley for a fresh onslaught, they were joined by wargs and a bodyguard of Bolg. Despite a further attack by Thorin, victory was still eluded the dwarves. Watching all this, while wearing his ring and remaining invisible, Bilbo became very doubtful. But just then, the eagles appeared and tipped the balance. Bjorn appeared seemingly from nowhere and killed Bolg. Then he picked up the wounded body of Thorin and carried him to refuge. As he lay dying, as Thorin lay dying, he and Bilbo were reconciled. Thorin's body was buried with the Arkenstone upon his chest and the sword Orcrist on top of his tomb. So it could be about reconciliation, what is the question again? How can I best work with you? Again, I really think it's, for me it would be reconciliation with the Hobbit, it's like returning to the Hobbit. So I think that's what that has to do with. Alright, so I ended up picking two cards, and they actually go well together. They're, because so the next question is, what are your strengths as a deck? And what's interesting is that most people might not think of this as a shadow deck, but the first card is killing your dragons, the Ten of Wands. So killing your dragons, killing your demons, okay? So this could be a shadow deck. And the other is the Emperor. And this is the King of Elves, and it has an arrow there. So, pinpointing your demons, killing your demons, pinpointing what's amiss, because certainly in The Hobbit, the elves are very aware of their surroundings, so definitely awareness comes in there. So cool, I was happy with that. What are your weaknesses as a deck? And we got this, Eight of Wands. And I'm going to look into that one in the book, Eight of Wands, because this one doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Because unless, if you think of Eight of Wands traditionally being rapid communication, that this deck might be weak in terms of being a fast reader. Although, for the most part, I'm being able to read this fairly fast. But, you have to know the story. But let's take a look. See if we can find the Eight of Wands. The goblins arrived on the scene and joined their warg friends as they set fire to the trees. Just as Gandalf gets ready to spring down from the top of a tree, the Lord of the Eagles swoops in and carries him away. Down swept the great birds that were with him and carried away all the companions. Soon they were high up in the sky. When the flight ended, Bilbo was surprised to learn that Gandalf and the Lord of the Eagles seemed to know each other. In fact, Gandalf had once rendered service in the form of healing him from an arrow wound. So, Eight of Wands. So I guess that was rapid communication, if we think of it in terms of Gandalf communicating with the Eagles. Okay, I got that one. And certainly a very rapid response by the Eagles. But what was this for? So this is a weakness of the deck. No fast rescue. Maybe it can help us pinpoint a problem, but it can't rescue us. I think it has to do with the speed of communication here. All right, next. What is the potential outcome of our time together, or of working with you, of my working with this deck? What is the potential outcome? And we have the Knight of Wands, which is when Bilbo, I'm pretty sure, is considering what to do with his Arkenstone. Yes. No? Maybe not. Okay, Knight of Wands. So, what is the potential outcome of our time together, or of working with this deck? According to Thorin's description, the Arkenstone was like a globe with 1,000 facets. It shone like silver in the firelight, like water in the sun, like snow under the stars, like rain upon the moon. This was all quoted, I guess, from the book. It's in quotes. Bilbo discovers it in the treasure hoard and secretly takes it for himself, even then sensing that his agreed-upon share was not intended to include this special gem. After the besiegement of the men of Lake Town and the Elven King, whilst on night duty with Bombur, he slips on his ring and goes over the wall, making his way to the besiegers' encampment. There, meeting with Bard and the Elven King, he reveals the Arkenstone to aid them in their bargaining with Thorin. Okay, well maybe there's more than one place that it actually talks about that. That would be a little strange, because I know that there's another one that takes a different tack on this. The same incident. He was fully aware of Thorin's willingness to starve himself to death rather than surrender any of the dragon's treasure. So, Knight of Wands, potential outcome. I have to say, this one's kind of eluding me. Unless we think of the deck itself, 1,000 facets as being an Arkenstone, and, and thinking of taking it and making it more public, or making it a means to understand ourselves or other people, or I don't know, as a bargaining chip. Doesn't make sense to have the deck as a bargaining chip. Anyway, so that one's a little opaque, but not bad for a deck interview. All right, what is one thing you ask of me? And this is cute, right? High Priestess, what is one thing you ask of me? To use the deck, to use the deck. But let's take a look at the High Priestess. I'm not sure if I've read any of the major arcana and how they're portrayed. So let's see. Oh, I guess I did read the Empress in my initial review. Two pillars hold up a royal archway, a circle of light upon one and one for darkness adorning the other. Underneath the archway, a lunar crescent signals that for everything there is a season. On the left page, it reads the lost key of the book to the Book of Dane, and on the right, Lord of the Misty Mountains. Dane the first was the last king of the dwarves in the Grey Mountains before the dragon Smaug attacked. Dane the second, Ironfoot, was proclaimed king of Durin's folk, the dwarves, upon Thorin's death in the Battle of the Five Armies. The lost key thus refers to the power of destiny and of history itself to bring all things back to full circle. The history of events, so it's interesting, so it's kind of history, to keep maybe the history in mind, or the story for that matter. The history of events between the two Danes is more fully covered in the Silmarillion. I thought it was the Silmarillion. Anyway, but suffice it to say, it tells us of the many wars against the dragons. And I don't even remember that. I did read the Silmarillion. And other demonic creatures. It was underneath the Misty Mountain that the dwarven kingdom of Moria existed. I guess I do remember something about that. So that really doesn't add too much to just your general interpretation of a High Priestess card. And the divinatory meaning is be guided by your intuition, secrets, deep feelings kept hidden. If this card is showing you. So what is this? What is one thing you ask of me? So I could see reading the deck intuitively. It's asking to be read intuitively, to use the deck and to read it intuitively. I could see that. Okay. It says right now to get in touch with your deeper feelings, which you may have kept hidden from yourself for years. Well, some maybe, but if it shows another, in other words, if it depicts another person, this person may well help you do just this. Okay, there we go. Last one. What kind of readings do you enjoy the most? So this is asking what does the deck enjoy the most? And we got the world. So I guess I'll read that one also. So what do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. The major arcana. Oh, my dog. I don't know what she hears. I think one time she heard me put the cards on the table like that, and she started barking. And I think she's hearing the neighbor dog right now. The world. The dragon Smaug sits atop a mountain of immense treasure. We can but wonder about the legends and stories as to how such a vast hoard has been amassed. So I would say, just right off the top, that maybe the kind of readings you most enjoy have a broad scope, like this deck. It makes sense with the world, the whole idea of the world. For example, pulling a card for every month. Okay, I could see maybe this would work for Celtic Cross. So it might not work so well for 3-card readings or something that's very pointed, but is trying to give like the big picture, the big story. We wonder at the labors of the countless people and beings to bring such treasures out from the deepest depths of Mother Earth. We wonder at the smeltings, gem cuttings, and the craftsmanship to put such artistry to nature's best. The value of this hoard is inestimable, for before us we see the wealth of entire nations. So yeah, I think broad readings is what it's kind of getting at, and to keep the storytelling aspect of it alive. entire nations buried back deep into the earth's bosom, where it will be safe from prying eyes and sticky fingers. Too cute. Anyway. Alright, so I decided to pull one more that's part of this deck interview, but I usually don't use this question, but this being a new deck, I thought I would. It says, what kind of readings do you most enjoy? And I got the page, what is a piece of advice you have for me today? So what is a piece of advice this deck has for me today? And I got the Page of Cups, which is Elrond. And I'm not sure what that's saying. Cups. Where are the cups in here? There's one cup. Page. It's kind of, and that's another thing that is a little like Page of Cups for Elrond, really. Alright, so Elrond married Celebrian, daughter of, or Celebrian maybe? Daughter of Celeborn and Galadriel. From this union he had 2 sons and a daughter, the Lady Arwen. The mysterious ring he was entrusted with was Vilya, the mightiest of the 3 elven rings. Elrond gives shelter to the companions and becomes a permanent friend to Bilbo Baggins, who he receives as a permanent guest some years later. He deciphers the code of runic letters on Thorin's map. Stand by the grey stone when the thrush knocks, and the setting sun, with the last light of Durin's day, will shine upon the keyhole. So, figuring out runes, maybe? He further reveals that Durin's day is when the last moon of autumn and the sun are in the sky together. Interesting. So to me, that's like, I don't know if are we dealing to some extent with riddles? I don't think it's really riddles that we deal with when we have a deck of cards or a spread out here. So I'll keep that in my consciousness as a potential, something that I'm potentially being advised to do. New social, this is the divinatory meaning, new social and professional contacts, an offer of love, or an admirer. I've been a little bit afraid of that recently. Anyway, somebody that I'm not going to be involved with. The energy of this card is playful, but playfulness alone is not necessarily enough reason to get involved. Yes, I agree. When the dust settles after a new affair starts. So this is interesting. So the divinatory meaning. So in the story, although he becomes a friend to Bilbo, and he opens his home, so he's offering his place, a place of security and warmth. That's very Cupsish. But most of the story that I read to do with the story was really mental energy. It was thinking energy. Granted, it was in order to help them, but it was still thinking energy. But in the divinatory meaning, they're focusing on his relationship, I guess, with Celebrian? I don't know. Anyway, when the dust settles after a new affair starts, then begins the more serious business of getting to know the other person. This can lead to some rethinking on many levels. In an existing relationship, this card urges you to look again at your own and your partner's needs. Have you been blithely assuming that all is well, or taking everything for granted? Perhaps it's time to look again while there is still time. Okay, so I can see the looking again, or maybe getting somebody else's advice to look at something, because that's what was in the story. That's what they were doing. They were looking again at the map and how to use it, something like that. Reversed, it warns against the possibility of self-sabotage in a relationship. So, I've been warned. I've been forewarned. So there's the deck interview, such as it is. Now there's another type of deck interview. And I don't think I've ever done this with a deck. I might have done it, but I'm going to do it with this deck because this is it's just kind of fun, and I'm hoping it'll be quick. Maybe not in terms of having to locate the cards, but some cards were coming to mind. So a card that looks like me. Well, this Knight of Wands is not unlike, I got brown hair. I could live with that, looking like me. Since there are so few women, and I think they're all blonde, I'd have to check out Bilbo's mother, but other than that, I'm at a loss for potential in terms of somebody that looks like me. So I should keep these kind of in order. I like to record my deck interviews and keep them and never look at them again. And so soul card. So my soul card, I'm going to have to go with Bjorn on this. Bjorn in his bear form, because I'm very bearish. If I can find it. There's some others I'm pulling out as potentials for other things. Where are you, Bjorn? There he is in his more rugged appearance. There he is. Oh my gosh. That's right. This is my soul card in this deck. It's Bjorn. I don't even care if it makes him look like he's crazed. Bjorn. And what's the next? Dream home representation. Or no, yeah, dream home representation. I'm going to go, this is supposed to be Elrond's home, some kind of home of Elrond. So I'm going to go with that. Over a hobbit hole. Hobbit holes have potential, but I'm not going to go with a hobbit hole for this one. I don't know. Divine masculine. I don't know. I might have to come back to divine masculine. Divine feminine. Shirley Goldberry. Yes, that's what she is. She's divine feminine Goldberry. So scary. This guy, scary. Yeah, he works for scary. So I'm waffling. I don't know if my divine masculine would be this emperor. I don't know that the Elven King is divine masculine for me. There was, and I think I'm going to pass even on Gandalf. No, it's not going to be Bjorn in his non. There was another one in here that was just supposed to be a man from Lake Town. I kind of like this guy who's nameless, but hang on just a second. Let me find. I might even take him for that matter. I'm getting old. You'll see what I'm saying when you see it. Now that aspect of Thorin, maybe. It kind of depends. Alright. So here we go. I'm not sure who would be my divine masculine. But I think I'm going to put this guy aside, the Elven Guard. I think I'm going to put him aside. So one is this depiction of Thorin. In other places, I swear, in other places in this deck, he looks more like an old man. So it's a little confusing. But this aspect, yes. And when I was saying I'm getting old, so hey, why not? This kind of old man picture, this is Dane the dwarf. But the one that first came to mind in the deck as kind of a divine masculine was this Vikingish looking man from Lake Town. So there you go, kind of standard fare. Scary, we did scary. There's all kinds of things for friends here. So I'll look for friends, but here's my crush. Who would I have a crush on? I could have a crush on Bard. When I was maybe 12 or 13, when I first read the book, I might have had a crush on Bard. Sure, no problem. So friends. Oh, there's just friends all over in here. But but it isn't a super friendly deck. It focuses a lot more on their problems that they face and have to solve. Maybe that one. How funny, even that one. Alright, maybe I found more than one. I shouldn't worry myself further. Yep. Okay. So, I found 3. Now this one appeals to me a lot because I'm a horse lover. And going out on a ride together, that would be very idealistic, friendship-wise. But this also is a great friend card to me. Hanging out, chatting, out in nature, maybe on a hike. That's beautiful energy. And I actually love this one too. Foraging together. I love foraging. Going together. For some people it might be shopping. For me it would be more digging around in things. So there's friends. We did the crush. Help. Who would you want to help? And guide. Whose advice or guidance would you seek? I don't know. I might use Elrond. I mean, really, Elrond or Gandalf, either one. I would seek their guidance. Who would I help in this deck? Or where is there a card that I feel moved to help someone, to join in the fray? It's kind of funny because I don't really get that feeling in this deck very much. Some decks I do feel like the universal fantasy. Oh my God, there's some situations in there like it's it just moves me to want to take up a sword and do something. Who do I want to help? Well, I've got here, see, look, this is supposed to be Thorn, and this Thorn doesn't look anything like the other Thorn. Anyway, so that's I think that guy who's chained up, that's the 8 of Swords. I think that's what I would help, who I would help. Okay. I would help Thorn. We did the guide. Okay, so now we're looking for something that's funny. And this, I think, is just not a very funny deck. I mean, there's some that are amusing if you consider their conjunction with traditional tarot. Looking at the ones I've already chosen. Let's see if I can find a funny. One that I consider funny. It's just not a funny deck, what can I say? It's a deck of problems and crises and problem solving and running away from things. And rescues. It's an interesting thing to do in a deck interview, and to look and realize that this is essentially a humorless deck. Now, we could maybe take this as humorous. Now, they're in trouble, but it is kind of humorous. That's the trolls. The rock trolls. But you know, it's not like you look at it and you want to chuckle or anything like that. Nope. I'm sorry. We have here the humorless deck. There it is. Alright, everybody. Take care. I hope this has helped you see the potential of this particular deck. I'm sure I will be using it in a variety of ways. I don't see it as too limiting. Alright, take care. Bye-bye.